Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, as you probably read by the title, I'll be telling you guys about my favorite books of 2024 so far. We're already in the month of July when I'm filming this. You're probably going to see this video in August, which is insane, like where the year went by. I'm like, what happened? But I've read a lot of amazing books this year and I want to tell you guys my favorites. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first books that I'm going to tell you guys about, it's a series that I started at the end of last year and finished this year, and that honorable mention goes to ACOTAR by Sarah J Maas. So the first book, I've read it last year, the last book I read last year, and it's A Court of Thorns and Roses. This book, I feel like if it was an amazing first book. It's not that much. It's like 400 pages, which is amazing. But this book, it's about Feyre, and we follow her. She is a human, and in this world there are fae, fairy, high lords, a lot of creatures, and we see how she kills this one and gets herself in trouble. So the High Lord of the Spring Court is like, you have to come with me because of the crime that you did. Like, humans don't like fays, and they don't like humans because they hate them, kind of, and they're weak and all of that. And this book, it's amazing. I don't want to say more than that because this series, it's a whole thing. So I read this last year, and then we dive into the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. This book was amazing. I cannot tell you obviously because it spoils this book, and as the further we go on, you felt more in love with the characters. I know the size of them, it's intimidating, but believe me when I say it's totally worth it. I love all of them. Like, I will have to say my least favorite is this one, not because it was bad, it's just because it was the first book, and I feel like usually in the first books of series you're getting attached to the characters, but as the series progress, that is where you get more attached. So the third book, it's A Court of Wings and Ruins. This one is a chunky one, but I loved it nonetheless. This is the fourth book. Before this, there's a novella, A Court of Frost and Starlight. I do not own it, but I did read that, and it's a really short novella about the characters, and it's cozy. It's not like, oh my god, I have to read it. I feel like it's necessary, obviously, because this is not interconnected standalones. It's a series. You have to read you have to go through the whole thing. And this one, it's the last that it's out for now, and that is A Court of Silver Flames. This one was amazing. So these are the books that I read this year, and all of them are 5 stars except for the first one, which is a 4.5, but they were amazing, and I cannot recommend this series enough. I feel like people are like, oh, I DNF the first book, and I feel like if I would not have listened to this, maybe I would have done that. Not because it was bad, it's just fantasy in general, it's hard to get through. Why? Because there's a lot of world building, but I do not regret getting into this. This was the best decision I've done, and I'm so happy that I did it, and I finally read it this year. I read it back in January, which feels like a long time ago, but it's here. Then I read this book that came out last year, but I read it this year, and it was one of my most anticipated reads of last year, and it's Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. Lauren Asher is one of my favorite authors. I've read all of her books, and so far I loved every single one of them, and this one wasn't the exception. So this book is about Julian and Dalia, and they are childhood friends to rivals to lovers. That's the best way I can describe it. But basically, they've known each other their whole life. They live in this small town that is called Lake Wisteria, and their family knows each other. Like, everybody from his family knows her, as well as the opposite, which all of her family know him. And they were at the beginning always rivals, like, oh, I have greater grades than you, oh, I did better in this and that. And then when they were around college, they kind of got close, like, okay, we're friends, it's okay, we're always going to be in each other's life. And something happened and they just distanced themselves and went their separate ways. Later we see how Dalia is going through a breakup and she comes back to her hometown to just like get out of the life that she knows. And who is there? Julian, because he lives there. And then she wants to start a project because she's an interior designer, which is from the cover. This is one of the prettiest covers ever, and it's just, you love it even more once you read the book, which is amazing. I love when authors do that. But Julian is the CEO of a construction company. So his mom is like, oh, help her with this project. She's going through a tough time. Help her. And that is like the forced proximity. And it was just amazing. It's a chunky book, I know, but I feel like what is good about this, it's you really get in depth into the characters. They're going through their separate things individually, and I just love the character growth, and I just love it. It's amazing. So that is Love Redesigned. Then I read The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. Elle Kennedy, I'm obsessed with her. I have a whole shelf dedicated to her, and she's the queen of hockey romance. And when I knew she was coming out with another series, which is the kids of the first generation, like I was like, I'm here for it. And this book is about Gigi and Ryder. She's part of Briar U's female hockey team, and in Ryder's case, he was from this university and they shut down the sports program. I don't know what happened, but it just shut down. So now the nearest school from them is Briar U, and they're rival schools. So at the beginning, it's Frosty with the male team and all of that. And in his case, he's a super fan of Gigi's father, which is Garrett Graham. Like, who doesn't know this man? And he has a camp in the summer, and he's going to choose a guy from the Briar U's team. So Ryder really wants this opportunity and is like, Gigi, I'm like, please help me. I'm going to help you with this, which is something that she struggles in hockey, and that's going to get her goal, which is the women's Olympic team, hockey team, and they help each other and do this deal. And this was amazing. I constantly think about it. Like, I've read it 2 times already, and I'm probably going to read it another time this year. But that is that book. Then I read this book. It's my first time reading a memoir. I've never read something like this, and it was amazing. The writing, I listened to it. So the actress whose memoir this is about, she narrated, so it was even better. And the book is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I wasn't really like a Nickelodeon girly. I was more of a Disney girly, so I didn't know much about this actress. But with this one, I was like, wow. It's crazy how on camera you see one thing and it's another thing. And I loved this book. It was well narrated. The writing, it was amazing. Like, the chapters are a page, 2 and 3 max long, which I love. I love short chapters, and I was really glad that I did read to this, and it makes me want to listen or read more memoirs. Then I decided to pick this book. I saw like a drawing of it, and I was like, oh, should I read this or not? I do not own the physical copy, but I really want to get it, and that is All I Need by E. Salvador. This book was the biggest surprise, to be honest. I was like, oh, I'm getting interested. It's single parent. I love that trope. I saw the number of pages. I was like, ooh, that is a chunky book. I don't have a problem with chunky books, but I feel like the first book in a series should not be that chunky. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it an opportunity. You know, it's unlimited, it's free. Why not? That was the best decision I've ever made. That book was amazing. I was obsessed with it, and I totally want to reread that book once I get it, annotate it, obsessed. So this book, it's about TK and Lola. They meet in Florida. In her case, she's there with her girlfriends for a trip. You know, they ended high school, they're going to go to college, you know, a fun time to spend with your girlfriend. She recently discovered that her boyfriend was cheating on her, so she was kind of down, and at the same time she really wanted to enjoy herself. She was there, and then she met this guy named TK, and in his case, they don't really exchange last names, they don't know numbers, they don't know where they're from, nothing. They just start talking to each other. They meet at this party and they vibe. They're like, oh, there's something here, and he discovers discovers that her boyfriend cheated on her. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to be your boyfriend for 3 days you're here. Kind of ask her like, what would your perfect date be? He takes her on one. The next day they meet, and we just see them going on the boat from his family, and that's it. So 2 years later, we see that Lola is starting college or university. She meets somebody in her class. I don't remember who. One of the guys that she talked to and the girl know TK. So they know him and they're friends. And he happens to be in the basketball team of the school. And I'm pretty sure he's a captain, if I'm not wrong, and one of the best players and all of that. Everybody knows him at the school. He's extremely popular. So she's like, oh my god, like, it's him. And he could recognize her, and you know, they vibe. They're like, oh my god, it's been a long time. How you're doing? Blah, blah, blah. And little by little, they reconnect. But she's like, how I'm going to tell him that dun dun dun, we have a son together. She got pregnant when they met the first time before going their separate ways. They slept with each other. It's just the found family. I love sports romance. It's not really sports heavy like at all, but what I love about sports romance, or you know, one of the characters being in a team, is how there's always the majority of time found family. I'm obsessed with that. It's one of my favorite tropes ever. I love when, you know, they needed help or whatever, one of the teammates always helped, and the close friends and all of that. It was just great. And this book was my biggest surprise, I feel like, this year, and I do not regret reading it. Like, it was the best thing ever, and I'm excited to get it. You will see that, you know, another time. But I just loved this book, The Found Family, like I said, and I love when things change between the couple, and you know, when there's the baby involved, and it was just amazing, and I really enjoyed it. So then another book that I read this year, the second it came out, because let me tell you, I'm so obsessed with Elle Kennedy, and I loved this book so much that another one of my favorites this year is the sequel, which is The Dixon Rule. And this was, oh my god, so good, and it makes me excited for the next one. But let me tell you about this one. So this one is about Diana and Shane. Diana is best friends with Gigi from the first book, and Shane is best friends with Ryder from the first book. So they kind of always meet because obviously they're best friends are together, and Diana doesn't like Shane. So he went to a breakup in that book, and his way to cope with that, it was sleeping around. And in her case, she's a cheerleader. So one thing he did, he was sleeping with a bunch of girls. Cheerleaders happened to be there, and one of her teammates get injured because she kind of like was like, oh my god, why he isn't answering. She became kind of not obsessed, but she was like, oh my god. She became focused on Shane. So she injured herself, and she doesn't like Shane because of that, because she's like, you're leaving heartbroken of my teammates, and you know, they're my friends, so I don't like you. And they have this enemies to lovers from there. You know, she doesn't really like him. In his case, he doesn't like her because he feels like she's judgmental and all of that. So then what happens, he moves to the same building she lives. So that is another reason to be pissed. She's like, I was here first, why are you like in my space? I always have to see you because our best friends are in love, and now I have to see you at the same building I live. And what's even worse, he's neighbors with her, like the same floor. So she's even more pissed about that. But then her stalker-ish ex and kind of freaky and super weird ex moves there, and she doesn't want to know anything about him. So she's kind of like, oh, I need somebody, and she says that Shane is her boyfriend. So that started the whole like fake relationship that turned into friends, enemies with benefits. And this was amazing. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. That will probably be on the same video, but next year, hopefully. A book that I listened to, because that book was on BookTok, BookTube, everywhere. And it's a YA fantasy, and that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I finally read this book and I was like, I feel like I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm obsessed. Like, as you can see, I own the second book. Like, that book was amazing. And that book, it's about Kai and Peyton. So basically, there's this world of the ones with the power, you know, the kingdom, the king, the queen, the princes, and Kai is one of the prince. Then there's like those with powers and all of that, and the ordinaries. And the ordinaries get chased away and killed. Why? Because it's said that the ordinaries weaken the one with powers, and obviously you want the most elite ones up there. And Peyton happens to be an ordinary, so you know, she's been struggling but living, and she has this best friend named Adina, and both of them, you know, they help each other. And one day she meets this guy and she's like, oh, not meet, but she sees this guy, she's like, oh, this one has money and she's a really good thief. So she started talking to him, you know, she grabbed the money and she just goes her way, but then discovers that there are 4 men attacking this man. So she's like, oh my god, what should she do? And she sees that somebody's controlling his power, so she stops all of that, and that grabs the attention of the rich man, who happens to be the prince, Kai. So he also discovered that she took money from him, and it kind of becomes a disaster. She tries to escape. She's like, oh my god, I grabbed the attention of the freaking prince, which is not good because she's an ordinary. And Kai is like, this girl's weird, but she's luckily like made her way into becoming an elite. So she disguises herself. People don't know that she's an ordinary and all of that. And because she saved Kai, she gets invited into this thing, kind of the Hunger Games, a trial. And in this world, getting into the trial is considered an honor. Like, you should feel lucky that you're invited into that, but obviously she doesn't feel like that because she's an ordinary, and all of the participants obviously have powers. So she's like, I'm fucked. That was probably the worst thing I did. Like, I'm going to die. And you see her going through these trials and all of that, and that book was amazing. If you loved, I feel like, Divergent, Hunger Games, like, that was amazing. That book is the perfect book to get into fantasy, the perfect one. It's YA, so I feel like it's easier. That book was amazing. Like, I cannot believe this author created all of that word in her mind, which is insane, but she did such an amazing job. I've listened to it. I listened to it, and the voice for Kai, his voice is so sexy. It was amazing. I cannot recommend enough. And the last book, it's my last 5-star reads. Like, this book is everything to me, and it's the last one. It's probably my favorite book of the year. I feel like any book can top this one. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's part of my favorite series, and it was just amazing. And that is Play Along by Liz Tomford. This book was amazing. This book was everything I wanted and more. I love when you expect so much of a next book in a series and it delivers. So let me tell you about this book. This book is about Isaiah and Kennedy. Isaiah, from the moment he met Kennedy, he's always been smitten by her. He's like, oh my god, like, that is the woman for me. And he's a professional baseball player, and in her case, she's the physical therapist of the team. And it's really hard for her, obviously, as sports is male dominant, and her being a female, and like, her boss is like, I don't want you to be a distraction, all of that. She's always maintained a professional relationship with the players. Like, oh, you need something with this, that's it. Like, we don't even say hello to each other outside of work. Like, I'm just there to help you with something, that's it. So they, like, his teammates and his brothers are always teasing him, like, oh, you're always saying, like, oh my god, Kennedy this, Kennedy that. And they've never taken his crush seriously. But in his case, this previous season, she had an engagement ring, and the second he saw that she didn't have that engagement ring, he's like, that is my chance. He cleaned up his act. He didn't sleep around, nothing. Like, he was like, this is my moment. He goes to a preseason travel with his team. They all go to Las Vegas, you know, before the season, you know, to team off some the energy, just to let loose. And he meets Kennedy there, and she's there for her stepsister bachelorette party, and he discovers that her stepsister is going to marry her ex-fiance, which, what the fuck? And she's pissed, you know, I want to say like F you to my family. And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, why don't you marry somebody just to say like fuck you to your family? She wakes up the next day extremely drunk, and what happened? She married Isaiah, the guy she swore she will never like flirt with and interact with, because she's like, oh my god, he's just a childish guy that has a crush on me. She never really took him seriously, and in his case, he's like, this is my chance. Then she's going like, oh, we should divorce. She's pissed, and he gets pissed because he's like, we agreed to each other, like, with this. It wasn't my fault, blah, blah, blah. Then she's about to lose her job. So he's like, oh no, we're in love. We didn't want to say anything. This is extremely serious relationship. So they have to stay married for the whole season. And they have to make their boss believe that they're madly in love with each other. And she's like, okay, well, we're going to do this 6 months, and that's it. And in his case, he takes it like, okay, I have 6 months to make my wife fall in love with me. They're book boyfriends. They're amazing book boyfriends, and they're the blueprints, which Ree here is one of them, and this is the other one. And you could tell this is a man written by a woman. This man was everything. He is the definition of what I want in a man. He was perfect. He was amazing. This book is amazing. I don't think I will shut up about this book. I have so many anticipated releases this year, but I don't think something could top this. Like, should totally read. But yeah, these are all the books. These are all my favorite books of this year so far, and I'm excited to see what the end of the year is going to look like, and if some of these changes or not. I'm really, really excited for the rest of the year and to read obviously more books, because duh. But yeah, that will be all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video, guys. Bye.